Hi, I'm Steve Casely from CBT Nuggets, and welcome to this nugget on the Prince2 principles. There are a number of principles that are built into fundamental to Prince2. We've already discussed the Prince2 process model. We've already discussed and overviewed the Prince2 themes. This is the last of the foundational principles of Prince2, and this is focused on the principles of Prince2. And there are 7 principles in Prince2 that we're going to review in this nugget. They are continued business justification, learn from experience, defined roles and responsibilities, manage by stages, manage by exception, focus on products, and tailoring Prince2 to suit the project environment. Unlike the last 2 nuggets where I overviewed the process model and the themes and alerted you that there will be subsequent nuggets to follow and give you the details of each of the processes and each of the themes, the Prince2 principles are self-contained in this specific nugget. This nugget, we're going to review the details of these 7 principles, recognizing that there's a common theme or a common principle, if you want to use that term, throughout these principles. Continuous business justification we've seen and heard from before. This is the ongoing validation of the business case as part of project approval and the ongoing revalidation of the business case at every stage. Learn from experience. At the end of every stage, we learn from our experience. We do lessons learned. And at the end of the project, we do a formal lessons learned and validate or improve our corporate repository of best practices. Prince2 has a very defined role and responsibilities. We have a defined organization that we're going to review and understand in Prince2. Prince2 is all about managing by the stages of our project delivery lifecycle. We do analysis, that's a stage. We do design, that's a stage. We do development, that's a stage. And we will manage the principles, the processes within each of those stages, as we've experienced in the process model. Prince2 introduces possibly a new concept to you with the management by exception. Prince2 identifies the key areas we need to manage: schedule, cost, risk, scope, quality, and so on. And management by exception defines the authority levels that I as the project manager have, and as long as I'm managing the time, the cost, the risk within my limits, then I am able to continue to manage the project. And as soon as my limits are exceeded, I need to escalate that to the next level of management to take appropriate actions within their power authority. Prince2 is focused on products, producing the right products at the right time to satisfy the business expectations. And finally, the importance of tailoring Prince2 to suit the complexity, the size, the criticality of the project so that we continue to apply a reasonable management oversight to our projects. And our first principle is continued business justification. Again, it's a common, and I don't want to use the word theme because themes are a specific component we're going to discuss later in this series around Prince2, but it's a continued principle of Prince2. As discussed already, all Prince2 projects should start with a business case. It defines what the business wants. Effectively, it's the scope for the project. But the most important aspect of that business case specific to this principle is that business case contains the cost-benefit analysis. And this needs to be a comprehensive cost-benefit analysis. Unlike that very simplistic example that I gave in my introduction, whereby if it's a $50,000 or $5,000 project, and we have a $1,000 annual payback over 5 years, the project is justified. Now, cost-benefit justification is much more complex than that, and we typically will need to get into full financial analysis. What's the discount factor on money? What's the future cost of money? What's the required rate of return? So typically when we're developing a cost benefit statement for our project, we need to find our good friends in finance and engage them and ensure that we're delivering our cost benefit statement based on the appropriate financial analysis methods used in our organization. And I'm not going to go into more detail of those financial analysis methods. A, this is not a financial management course. This is a Prince 2 course. And B, different organizations will use different financial analysis methods and techniques. So again, find your friends in finance and work with them to do the detailed cost benefit statement. Now, the costs typically for a project are pretty easy to come by, and I say that somewhat tongue in cheek. It takes a lot of work by the project management team, by ourselves, to come up with the cost. But once we have the scope defined, once we've identified all of the work packages and all of the other pieces and bits and bobs that are necessary to make the project, we simply assign the cost to all of the components, all of the work packages, all of the estimates, and we can come up with the cost for the project. And that can, again, easily, tongue-in-cheek, be developed and will be developed in my case, dollars, being a Canadian. Developing the benefit side of that statement can often be a lot more challenging. You go to the business and ask the business, is this going to be a cost-justified project? Absolutely. If we implement this project, we will be far better off. Well, can you begin to quantify that? Can you begin to put dollars on it? That's going to be very difficult. But it's going to improve our cost of inventory. Okay, now we're getting there. How's it going to improve our cost of inventory? Oh, because we're going to need less inventory on hand. Okay, how much is that going to cost? How much less inventory? So sometimes you can absolutely draw out and come up with dollars and say, as a result of this new project, we're going to reduce our on-hand inventory by 10%, go back to our friends in finance, find out what the average cost of the inventory is, apply 10% to that, and we have our benefit statement. So sometimes we can get them out in dollars, and those are what we call the tangible. But sometimes it's just not easy. Is this organization going to be better off as a result of the project? Absolutely. I know in my heart, or I know in my gut, we're going to be better off. Well, how are we going to be better off? Well, we're going to have better management information. Well, what's better management information going to give us? Well, it's going to give us more ability to control our activity. Well, how's it going to do that? Well, it's just going to allow us to stop guessing as much and start to manage by facts. Well, how's that going to improve? Are we going to make less errors? Oh, absolutely, we're going to make less errors. Well, how costly are those errors? Well, not sure. We're just going to be better off. So there will be some times where we come up with intangible. And these are, I just know we're going to be better off, but I can't put a dollar on it. And if we need to come up with a detailed cost benefit statement, and we've come up with the cost, we know it's going to be our $50,000, but the tangible benefits are few and far between, it's much harder to present the cost benefit statement to senior management and get it approved. But if you do a good enough job of packaging up the intangibles, and when I say packaging up, there are no dollar signs associated with it. That's what intangible means. We can still often present it to senior management, and they will accept that the cost benefit based on intangibles is going to be appropriate. And I had an example early in my career that I kept with me forever. I was doing a study for a marine ferry organization. They had ferries that ran in various locations around the area that I lived in, and they had an excessive amount of inventory or fuel inventory on hand. Different ferries use different styles and different types of fuel, so they had many, many large tanks of fuel, and I mean large tanks of fuel, sitting on their docks, and they knew they were carrying excess inventory on the docks, but they couldn't run the risk of ever running out of type A fuel when the ferry that needed type A fuel was in dock, because if there's no fuel, the ferry can't leave, et cetera, et cetera. So they always carried lots of spare inventory. And the same thing on board. They carried lots of spare fuel inventory because they never wanted to run out. And fuel consumption is going to vary on the time of the year, whether it's warm or cold, whether they have to go through ice. And yes, I live in a cold country and there is ice in the water, and they have to go through that, whether they're going into a headwind or whether they're sailing in with a tailwind. They didn't have a system that allowed them to analyze all those variables and determine how much fuel they needed to have on hand at the dock and how much fuel they needed to have in their vessels to safely make the voyage. So they simply carried lots and lots of extra fuel. And they absolutely knew in their hearts that they were wasting thousands to hundreds of thousands and I dare say millions of dollars annually in all of this excess fuel inventory. Everybody from senior management on down knew that they needed to fix this, hence the study I was doing. But when it came time to do this, so if we could analyze the fuel requirements based on the weather, whether it's a headwind, whether it's a tailwind, whether it's summer, whether it's winter, what's the fuel savings going to be? Well, we don't know, but we know it's going to be better because we know different trips take very substantially different amounts of fuel. Anyway, long story short, it was a very expensive undertaking. It was approved based purely on intangibles because everybody absolutely knew that they were poorly managing their fuel and knew that they could have substantial savings, but nobody had the calculations, nobody had the data, and the project got approved based on intangibles. Not the best situation to be in, but reality. Costs, again, tongue-in-cheek, are easy to come up with. Benefits are much more challenging. But we start the project with the business case and the cost justification, hopefully with our friends from finance. And then again, message you've heard already, we revisit it at every stage. We need to redo the cost, i.e. we replan. Based on the new information I have at the end of analysis, I now know design is going to be $25,000 as opposed to my last time estimate at $23,000. Why? Because I have better data. Now that analysis has been done, I have a far more comprehensive understanding of the work that's required for design. So I absolutely have better data, I can do a better plan, and I can have improved accuracy. And we should redo the benefit. As a result of 6 months of business, what's happened? Has our cost of goods gone up? Has our cost of goods gone down? Has our cost of labor gone up? Has our cost of labor gone down? And that, again, may impact the benefit statement, assuming it was of the tangible. So we redo it, we revisit it, and we get recommitment. We revalidate. And that's part of every stage closing. And we do that because, contrary to what you may believe, canceling a bad project, canceling a project that no longer makes sense, is good. You may be at the end of design and you may have spent 50% of the total expected budget on the project, but if the cost has gone up or the benefits have gone down or the project just plain doesn't make sense, canceling that project at the end of design, recognizing that we sunk $25,000 into it, and I'm going to call that wasted money, $25,000 down the drain, is still better than taking that $25,000 down the drain than continuing and spending another $25,000, taking it up to $50,000, but having a project that is not financially justified. By continuing to do bad projects, by canceling projects that are bad, we are absolutely doing a good thing for our organization. And that's something that a lot of people have some challenge with accepting. But we've already spent this $25,000. How can we say it's a good idea to throw that $25,000 down the drain? Well, I believe it's as simple as saying, I'd much rather throw $25,000 in the garbage can than throw the full $50,000 in the garbage can. Our next principle is learn from experience. Never start with a blank piece of paper. Never start with a blank project. Find something that's been done somewhere in the organization and find a template. Learn from experience. The last project that our organization has done created a good work breakdown structure, or the last project that our organization has completed produced the best training plan we've ever seen, or the last project that we worked on produced some awesome reusable code modules that will fit into our enterprise bus and can be reused. So absolutely learn from the corporate experience. Never start from a blank page. Always look for something somewhere, whether it is a complete project plan, whether it is a modeled sample deliverable, whether it is a reusable piece of code, but find some way to learn from the corporate experience. And within our project, we need to do a mini lessons learned at every stage close. What worked well in this stage? What didn't work? What would we like to improve? What would we like to never do again? Life is a learning experience. Projects are learning experience. Let's make sure that we are learning from our experiences. Typically, many lessons learned simply get baked into the plan for the next stage, but at the end of a project, we need to have a formal lessons learned, and those formal lessons learned need to be baked into the corporate experience or the corporate repository. A shared drive, a SharePoint site, a formal place for sharing projects lessons learned so that everybody can be starting from some degree, some form of template. And in order to accomplish that, I'm a huge fan of harvesting reuse, whether it is the full WBS, whether it is a project plan, whether it is a training document, whether it is reusable code, or whatever. Harvest the reuse, get it out somewhere that the organization can improve from it and reuse it, and we can do things, again, the proverbial better, faster, cheaper, because we are starting from something proven as opposed to starting from scratch. And hopefully a self-evident statement, all projects should have continuous process improvement built into them. It's wonderful to say we're going to do lessons learned at every stage. Important. It's wonderful to say we're going to do formal lessons learned at the end of the project. It's important. But every team member should be encouraged to say, did I do something special today? What can I do? How can I improve it? What can I do to be a better team member tomorrow? Bake learning from experience into every Prince2 project we work on. The next principle is defined roles and responsibilities. Again, a message you've already heard. Prince2 believes that project organizations are formal, need to be well defined, need to be communicated, need to be visible. And project organizations are very, very different than corporate organizations. You can't simply take your corporation org chart that says, here is the president, here are all the VPs, here are all of the directors, and this is my project organization, because that's not our project organization. Our project organization is temporary. We may be 4 levels deep into that project organization chart, and here we are, the PM. And we're here reporting to the IT person, but we may also have a member from the business community as our subject matter expert. We may have a person from the operations department. We may have a person from, and we will be pulling team members from all over the organization into our project organization. So our project organization is absolutely temporary, and therefore we need to spend the time to create a formal project organization chart. And I would actually suggest, and we'll review this in much more detail in a later nugget, talking about organization, that we need to have 2 project organizations charts. We need to have the actual project org chart, where I will be as pompous to say, here is Steve at the top, Here are my team leads, and here are my team members. And this is my actual project organization chart, but I also believe we also need to have what Steve refers to as his H chart. And you'll see why it's called an H here in just a second. So right here, this is me. I'm the PM. This is my acceptor. Here is my acceptor's boss. Here is my boss. And here are the people that report to. And again, we're typically trying to create the cross relationship between the business side and the project side. Yes, this is the project side. It doesn't go as deep as my project organization chart because the people on these people right here, are probably most likely my direct team leads. So, couple of project organizations chart, but it's very important that we have these so that everybody understands the roles and the responsibilities, who they report to, who they go to for clarification, and how they are expected to interact within in the confines of the project, recognizing that I'm pulling people in from multiple spots in the organization. Recognizing that our projects, again, are temporary, people may not know each other's details. They may not know their phone numbers. They may not know their email addresses. And if appropriate in your organization, to distribute things like cell numbers, pager numbers, and even home phone numbers, if you ever get to that point, we need to create project-specific contact lists so that this group of strangers, or most likely strangers that have been pulled together, know how to interact and how to get in touch with each other very, very quickly. And I believe my last bullet I've already discussed. It needs to include everybody that's going to be associated with the project. The business people, the IT people, management, and any external members that are directly involved with the project, whether they're suppliers, whether they're vendors, whether they're customers. But if you have external people that need to interface with and maybe even be part of the project, get them on the org chart. Get them on the contact list. Make it easy for people to understand your project organization. And next we have the manage by stages principle. Prince 2 is not the stages that we're referring to when we're saying manage by stages. Prince 2 is our project management lifecycle, and yes, we've discussed the overview of our Prince 2 process model and the Prince 2 lifecycle, and we're going to have future nuggets that review the Prince 2 lifecycle, but those aren't the stages we're talking about. In the project, we're going to have its own life cycle. So again, using a traditional IT development, we're going to do analysis. We're going to do design. We're going to do development. We're going to do testing of probably multiple layers, the system testing, performance testing, integration testing, customer acceptance testing. We're going to do implementation. We're going to do training, etc., etc. These are the stages we're referring to in this particular principle. These are the project stages. And as discussed, when we finish analysis, we do a stop, we do a revalidation of the business case, we do our lessons learned, and we replan based on our better information, we secure the approval, and we move on to design. So again, just the focus is when we say managing by stages, we're not talking about the Prince 2 stages, we're talking about the project stages. And as already discussed, we need to replan at every stage. This is progressive refinement. When we started the project and we did the original plan, we thought we could do this for $50,000, and that's going to be plus or minus, I'm going to say, a pretty big number, 100%. But analysis, we also did a detailed plan for analysis, and analysis was going to cost $8,000. And we should be very, very confident on our analysis. We're within 10% or maybe even less that we can do analysis for $8,000. By the time we're done analysis, we do the replan, we progressively refine it, and we now say, I believe the project is going to cost $53,000, and I know my actuals for analysis, and let's assume it was perfect, we did it for $8K, but we now can say, and my development or my design rather, is going to cost $12,000. Again, our confidence is going to get a little closer. We're not going to say we're plus or minus 50%, but again, for the next stage, again, we have confidence. We can know exactly what we're going to go on. It's plus or minus 10%. We refine it. Going into development, we have a better idea. We can refine this total estimate. It's now going to be 55, but our confidence is down to plus or minus 25%. And at the end of testing, it's going to be stay at 55, and our confidence has increased to plus or minus 10%. So we replan, we revalidate, we restate the cost benefit, and we get the recommitment to approve, to proceed with our project. And why are we doing this? Because it gives us better management of the work. As I said, going in, we think we understand the project, and it's going to take $50,000. But we are only guessing. The only thing we have a lot of confidence in is analysis. So we better manage the work, we create the detailed plan, and we closely manage the analysis phase, and we accept that there's going to be variability. And then when we have the better information, we replan, we develop the detailed plan for design, and again, it allows us to focus our attention on the facts and the figures for the project that we have confidence in. It allows for much better management of the work, and it ensures that we're doing the right things at the right time. By telling the team we're doing analysis and analysis only. Yeah, you may know how to write a module. You may know how to design one of the tables in the database, but we don't want to do that work right now because we don't have the whole big picture. So we're going to do analysis and only analysis. We're going to do all of the work required to do the analysis and only the work to do the analysis. And then that's going to allow us to go on and do all of the right work and only the right work to do design, and so on and so on and so on. So management by stages is far more than just the replanning and the revalidation. It's also a very strong project management approach to ensure that we are managing all of the work and only the work that needs to be done on our project at this point in time. The next principle is manage by exception. Prince2 defines 6 key measures that we should be managing as project managers in Prince2. Time or schedule. Cost, the dollars. Quality, are we delivering what was promised? At the right level of quality. Are we delivering the right things? Are we managing the risk and ensuring that there are no bad things that could go bump in the night to impact our project? So it's the unknowns and it's the contingencies. And finally, Prince2 says we should be continuing to evaluate the benefits, i.e., are we going to get the results wanted? And I think that's pretty common sense. That's the things that we always do as project managers, is manage the time, the cost, the quality, the scope, the risks, and the benefits. The key component of Prince2 is that we manage this within defined limits. And we have different limits for the project manager. So within time, the project manager has 100% the authority and the responsibility to manage the project as long as the time, the schedule is within, I'm going to say 10%, or plus or minus 2 weeks, where I'm just trying to quantify what the 10% is. So as long as the project manager is managing the schedule, and the schedule variance is never more than 10% of the total plan, i.e., never more than 2 weeks ahead or behind schedule, the project manager has full 100% responsibility, the power and the authority to take the actions to keep the project within his or her defined limits. But as soon as the schedule variance goes greater than the PM's limits, the PM is instantly expected to escalate that to the project board. And the project board is going to have its own limits. So let's say that's 25%, or again, I'm just going to make it very summarized, within a month. So as long as the project is not more than a month ahead or a month behind schedule, i.e. 25%, The project board, working with the PM, has the power and the authority to make project decisions. But as soon as any schedule variance grows greater than 25%, it needs to be escalated to senior management. And I'm going to say there's no limit on the power and authority of senior management. They are it. Every organization needs to develop their own limits for the PM, for the board, for the senior management, or whatever layers of organization your organization is going to have. And we need to have the limits defined at the time, the cost. So as long as you're within 10% of budget, within the quality, are we delivering exactly that the scope changes never exceeds more than 5% of the original budget, that the consumption of contingencies or the allocation of contingencies never exceeds, and that the benefit statement never decreases by more than a certain amount. We define the limits and we manage our project within the limits, and we instantly escalate as soon as any variance on time, cost, quality, scope, risks, or benefits exceeds the limits for our level of power and authority. Our second last principle is focus on products. Basically, deliver what was planned and deliver only what was planned. So when we develop our project plan for analysis, we're going to define what deliverables our analysis stage was supposed to produce, is going to produce, and we should produce all of those deliverables, and I'm going to stress, and only those deliverables at the acceptable quality expectations for the business. And this is based on well-defined requirements. And what do I mean by well-defined requirements? Well, we need to identify the deliverables. So in analysis, we're going to produce a current situation document. We're going to produce a conceptual solution document. We're going to produce a evaluation of commercial products document. We're going to produce 3, 4, 5 different deliverables associated with the scope and style of our project. So we're going to identify deliverables by name. Well, that's a good start. But if all you're doing is saying, I'm going to do a current situation analysis deliverable, does that truly explain what it is? Well, it gives us the concept of what the current situation analysis deliverable is going to be. But is there some room for ambiguity? Is there some room for expectations management or expectations run away? I think absolutely. So now we may want to deliver the table of contents, the TOC, for that deliverable. So if we start to say, and my current situation assessment is going to contain this and this and this and this and this in terms of an executive summary, review of review of, and basically lay out exactly what the current situation expectations are going to be. Is this narrowing the possibility of expectations not being met? Absolutely, because we're providing more detail. If we begin to put an annotated table of contents, in addition to naming the table of contents, we produce 1 to 2 sentences describing what's going to be in each of those chapters. Again, we're going to do a better job of expectations management. And finally, if we do an estimated number of pages. So in this particular section, review of current automated software, and we say it's going to be 5 pages long, to me, we're really managing the expectation. We're saying we're going to review the current automated software, and we're only going to produce 5 pages of material. That's telling me pretty well that we're going to be doing a high-level assessment. We're going to identify all of the systems by name. We're going to give you a paragraph or two of what our assessment of these current systems are. Should they be kept? Should they be replaced? Should they be whatever? But with only 5 pages expected deliverables, there's not going to be a lot of detail in there. So again, Prince2, focus on the products, deliver what was planned, and ensure that your deliverables are well defined so that you're properly managing the expectations in advance and not generating surprises when you deliver a current situation assessment document at 25 pages when the business was expecting probably a 400-page document that reviewed everything in minute detail. And our final principle is tailor Prince2 to suit the project environment. Any of the size of the project, the risk factor of the project, the complexity of the project, the criticality of the project. Does this project absolutely have to be a success or our business is going to go bankrupt? The uniqueness of the project, the capabilities of the team need to be taken into consideration when you determine the depth of Prince2 to be applied. A very small project with very low risk that's not at all complex. We're going to create a conference room scheduling system is not that critical. Yeah, if we don't write this conference room scheduling system or it's not delivered on time, a couple of meetings might get double booked, but it's not going to be the life and death of our organization. Is it unique? No, because we've done other scheduling systems in the past. The capabilities of the team, yeah, we've done systems like this. We may be able to come up with I'm going to say a light implementation of our Prince2 processes. But if this is a very large, multi-million-dollar project that's full of risk, there's a lot of components that we just don't know how to manage at this point in time. It's very complex. We're going to entertain or interact with 3 or 4 or 5 business units. It's very mission critical. If we can't get this project implemented successfully, we are going to lose our leading position in our industry. It's very unique. We're trying to come up with some bleeding edge stuff that's going to, again, feed to the criticality. And also, we have a very competent team. Our team has never worked on a project of quite this size complexity in the past. Therefore, we're going to want to implement 100% of Prince2 and ensure that we are setting our project up for success. The key message I want to deliver here is tailor. Prince2 is a set of guidelines that need to be applied in a very heavy approach. If all of these are critical, serious, heavy hitting, and it needs to be applied in a very light, I'm going to say almost nimble approach if it's a very simple project. And that's one of the biggest things a lot of newcomers to a formal approach such as Prince2 have troubles adapting to is trying to implement 100% of the solution when the complexity, the size, the risk of the project doesn't require 100% implementation. And this concludes our nugget on the 7 Prince2 principles. In this nugget, we talked about continuous business justification, the business case and the cost justification, the cost-benefit analysis, and the importance of having them at the beginning of the project, even if some of the benefits are intangible, and the importance of re-establishing the cost, replanning, and re-establishing the benefit statement at the end of every stage. In this nugget, we talked about learning from experience. We never start from a blank page. We go to our corporate repository, we find a template, and we build from prior experience in the organization, and we bake lessons learned into our Prince2 project, and we do lessons learned at every stage, and then we do formal lessons learned at the end of the project so that we improve our corporate repository of best practices. Prince2 is all about project organization so that we ensure the roles and responsibilities of this temporary group of individuals, potentially strangers, understand who's involved with the project, what the roles and responsibilities are, what the management structure is, and how to get in touch with each other. Prince2 is very focused on managing by stages. We complete a stage, we replan, we revalidate, and we move on to the next stage. And a key message of managing by stages is it is good to cancel a project that no longer makes organizational sense. The business case may have changed, the cost may have changed, the benefit statement may have changed, but it's far better to cancel that project at whatever stage we're in as opposed to investing more money into it. So continual rejustification and management by stage. Management by exception, we define the limits of our power and our authority and our responsibility, and we manage within our limits, and then we escalate as needed as soon as the project scenarios require us to escalate based on our established limits. Prince 2 is focused on products, ensuring that we're delivering the right materials, the right deliverables that's going to satisfy the business expectations. And finally, the importance of tailoring Prince 2, our project management principle, to be appropriate for the size, the complexity, the risks, etc., for the project, to ensure that we are not providing a heavyweight project management overhead to a very simple project, but that we are applying a heavyweight project management overhead to a very large, complex project. This concludes our nugget on the 7 Prince 2 principles. I hope this module was informative for you, and thank you very much for viewing.